and welcome to the As You Are podcast. My name is Leslie Vandergans. I'm the founder of Enso Coaching and Consulting, and I'm here with one of our amazing coaches, Kathleen Fletcher, and we're doing another episode of As You Are Unplugged.
Unplugged, baby! By the way, I'm going to just unplug everything in this room. You can't hear anything.
Even
Very
better.
literal.
The content.
We were already talking, just the two of us beforehand. So
We're like, just get it
end
started.
Yeah,
Just get it started. Well, I mean, one of the things that's so fun about us getting to do this together, and this is same thing with Libby, same thing with Adam, is like we have such a long history, and it's in such like different contexts. Like, we met each other in the theater world doing Beauty and the Beast at Zilker Park.
That's right.
Is that where we met?
That is I think I saw you on stage and I was like, oh my God, she's so good. She's so pretty. She's amazing.
Stop it. Also, big talent.
Finger point.
Big talent. And I knew your mom because your mom does costumes. And so like we were kind of in the like theater space. And so we knew each other and did the show together. And then we had a chance to live together. And it's always like, you never know when you like live with somebody, like what the outcome could be. Cause it could go south really fast, but we had a blast.
Amazing time. I felt very lucky that was the living situation.
It was so great. I mean, I always tell this story, but like one of my favorite stories was
when I'm like, which one? And I don't embarrass easily. Is it about
story.
The BAGEL?
Yeah. Well, it would just, like our schedules were so opposite because you would work like early in the morning and then do school. And then I was working day job and then would do shows, and then we'd like see each other at like 11 o'clock at night or something like that. And so we'd be sitting in the kitchen just like talking and maybe trying to like eat something really fast. And then I remember one day you were like sitting on the island.
That's
like
my
physically
Yep.
sitting on the island. And then in the middle of our conversation, you pulled a bagel out of your pocket and just started. And I was like, did you just pull a mini bagel out of your pocket?
Yeah, I'm resourceful.
And I'm pretty much giggled. I don't know, for years. I mean, I'm still giggling about it every time I think about it.
I do love that bagel story. But I think too, like, I have such a big grin on my face because I've always appreciated your friendship. And I lived in New York for 12 years. And whenever I came back to Austin, it was a very short list of like, these are the people I have to see. And you were always on that list.
I'm so glad. I mean, it was just so good because, it was like amazing what you were doing in New York and like the work that you were doing there and like the artistic opportunities that you had there. And you met your husband there. And there was all this like wonderful things that happened. And then when you came back, it was like, oh,
yes.
Well, what's next now? We've got to figure out what's next. And then, little did we know, this little thing ended up working out the way that it did. It was like
so
perfect,
great.
And you can't like map that.
No, and I'm like about to cuss. I'm such a cusser. I was going to be like, I bleeping love that. The not being able to map. And, yeah. And I, spoilers, on the drive here, Leslie and I talk about Unplugged. Before we got to the studio, we were like, oh my gosh, we want to talk about this. We want to talk about this. What about that? And one of the things we talked about is that notion of like all these different career paths and life paths you can go down.
Yeah. It's really amazing because, again, like sometimes I think there is something about planning.
Mm-hmm.
There is something about really thinking about what you want and what you're passionate about. And then there's also something about being really open to what shows up. And I, it's I feel like every time we talk, I'm like, it's always a balance. It's always about, but it is always a balance. It's just this balance of like, I have these passions or I have these things that I really want to do, and I'm gonna go in this direction because I have like a due north. And as things kind of show up and they come into our worlds, being really like aware and saying, oh, that thing actually sounds interesting. I wonder if that is the universe, God, whatever, telling me to like be open to whatever that is. Because again, we never know what how this unfolds, and by saying yes, like,
just how powerful that is.
Yeah.
This is making me think when my last job that I interviewed prior to working with Leslie, in the, like, 10 rounds of interviews you have before getting hired, when I had
Awesome.
I know, but you know what? I actually am that jerk who's like, "I love interviews. I love getting to meet people. I love getting to
It's
find out,
true.
like, what are folks doing? I love asking
Behavioral
questions."
assessment,
Yeah.
sociability,
Oh my gosh.
Kathleen, 99 plus, 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 greater than.
Yeah, that it's like, people. Um, in that, like, stereotypical or archetypal question that HR people will ask. That's the like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like I show up authentically almost everywhere. Um, and I was like, I don't know what to tell you because, well, the honest truth is like, there are things in my life where it is like a 50-year plan.
Mhm.
But there are other things in my life where it's like, I'm kind of open. And I said to her, like, I don't know where I will be in this company in 5 years. And I don't necessarily quite yet have a vision of the role, but like the vision of what things feel like.
Mhm.
And I was delighted that the HR person was like, I love that answer.
You
Oh
never
my
know what you're
gosh.
gonna get.
You never know what you're going to get. And
Right.
it's a box of chocolates.
Right.
And I wound up having 3 different roles at that company.
Yeah.
And all of them were varied, and all of them provided learning opportunities. Um, and and it was also something that was, like, atypical for
Yeah.
that company.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that willingness to just be like, "Sure."
Yeah, yeah. I wanna like pop over to something that you just said, which is like, the HR person asks you, "What's your 5-year plan?" And you authentically don't know and
Mhm.
authentically responded in that way, and it ended up being a positive.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes like we feel like we need to answer something in a way to get a response from somebody else rather than being really true and authentic because again, you know, somebody I don't Libby might coach you to say, think about where you want to be in 5 years so that you can like be ready and prepared to answer that question. And that might behoove you depending on what those roles
Mhm.
are. But there is something to be said for being truly authentic. And I think there's something to be said for you, Kathleen, in that you've spent a lot of time thinking about what you are and who you are and where you wanna go to say, "I am open with whatever
Mhm.
comes my way," and I am firmly okay with that.
Yeah.
And you have a 50-year plan and all these other
Yeah.
things, right? Um, versus like I'm not gonna spend time, looking internally and, I'm just gonna hope that some path takes me where I wanna go,
Mhm.
because I also think that that can lead to burnout and that can lead to struggles and frustration. So, once again, it's a balance.
It's I know, well, right, and I think that, like, with that like, I just keep thinking of, water, just as
Do
you pick up
you?
a
Do you
cup
think about
there.
water?
I
This
think
is
about
coffee.
water
It's not
all the
water.
time. Well, there's water and coffee and us.
Touche.
Yeah,
All over
science.
us.
And in us. Anyways, water has to balance itself out, and that is the thing, like, if you turn, like, a barrel of water over just the way that it will even itself out. I don't This metaphor might not be great, but just that, like, coming back to that science and that balance and being able to see, like, what becomes weighted and what needs to shift,
Mhm.
what needs hydration, if I'm just gonna roll with that metaphor a little bit more. And so, yeah, coming back to, like, being responsive and also, like, um, there are so many different things I want from my career,
Mhm.
and, like, I love being a coach, and also it's not the only career that I have.
Right. Exactly.
And that was true for every other job that I've had.
Right.
And so, like, this is where those like, which things have those longer plans versus which are the things that are a little bit more like,
Imma try it.
Imma
See
try
what
it."
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I think, there's I wanna just again, like, back to the balance piece and back to this kind of like, well, it's a little bit of this and it's a little bit of this, and, like, you've gotta kind of find and it that's it's such an elusive thing to kind of wrap your head around, but what I would say is, I think it's just about being purposeful,
Mm.
because if we can be purposeful about the choice of, "I'm gonna be open to whatever," or, "I'm gonna be purposeful about this is my path, and if something comes in, I'm gonna measure that against that path and see, does that make sense for me?" The same thing with making sure that we leave space for the things that we want in our lives,
Yeah.
and then attempting to try to keep ourselves from getting burnt out or keep ourselves aligned to our values. We have to be purposeful about all of those things. And I think sometimes it is when we're not purposeful or we're just going with too much of the flow without mindfulness around it.
Yeah.
It's when we can get a little off balance and off kilter. And maybe that's like a way to kind of differentiate how do you find the balance in some of these like random things.
Absolutely. Just stay in the water a little bit
Yeah,
longer.
get in there.
There was a metaphor. Because I love metaphors. I'm a writer.
You are
so
a
here
metaphor.
It comes in. I am a metaphor. Metaphor your thoughts. And it was a client who is stepping into a managerial role for the first time ever. And so we've been talking a lot about like what kind of manager they want to be. And this client is incredible. And is it okay to say that I love them?
Yes,
I
of
love
course.
them. And they're very aware of wanting to be people driven and wanting to be the manager that like everyone needs. But one of the things we talked about, and this comes back, I think, to purpose and like, how are you moving? So we brought in this idea of jellyfish. And jellyfish, Leslie's just nodding her head like
water,
yes.
jellyfish. Yeah,
Water,
metaphors keep going.
jellyfish.
It's perfect.
It is. Well, because the way jellyfish operate is
Yeah.
they just move with the current.
Yeah.
And that's a thing. And like, you know what? Jellyfish are surviving. Ain't no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But it's like, do you want to be a jellyfish who's just moving along with the current? Or do you want to be the whale who's like moving forward and there's a path and also, I'm not going to remember
Flowing.
Flowing
With
still
the current.
flowing with the current.
Yeah.
But there are also, sorry, this is like maybe really unnecessary. There are the fish that hang out on the whale. So it's like sometimes you need someone who is moving with purpose to help other people cling on and get through the ocean.
I love that.
And I think too true with the like choices that we make.
Yeah.
When are you a jellyfish? When are you a whale?
When are you a mini fish?
Attached to the whale. Yeah. And it's not like I say, like in my like career journey, and in anything, it's not like, and this is like so true for acting. I'm just gonna say in the acting, I'm just hopping everywhere.
So yeah.
But it's that like, as an actor for a long time, I was like, just say yes to everything because everything is an opportunity and you never know. And then it was like, don't say yes to everything. Sometimes it's not the right
true.
thing.
It's so true. Sometimes it's not the right thing. And it's really interesting because, this and your analogy of the ocean and the current and the fish and the jellyfish and all of those things is, I mean, I think it's a really great analogy. I giggle, but it's still a great analogy, metaphor. But I think about, going back to when you're creating these career opportunities inside of an organization that maybe is not clear around what is the growth path, being aware about what is the direction of the company, what are the needs, where are their gaps, where could we be of service, where could we stand inside of that space to actually add value, but also align it to the things that we love and are passionate about. This is where we get to be a little bit of the whale, so to speak, right? Where we're saying, I'm going to go with the current, which is the direction of the organization, but I'm also going to continue to drive something that is meaningful and purposeful to me, but makes sense in the greater context versus, I'm going to just jellyfish on and hope that my future and my longevity and my value to the organization means something or to life or to, whatever, right?
There's an ecosystem.
There is an ecosystem. It's funny when you were talking about this because even with what we've done here, like I think there was a clear kind of big picture purpose and kind of a clear overarching direction. And, you've heard me say this, like I wouldn't grow this business or grow this organization in a way that I wouldn't coach somebody else to, right? So I have to be like really mindful of that and kind of push against my own like shiny object syndrome thing. But when you had come back from New York and I was just kind of going on the journey and we had that initial, I think where were we at a coffee shop? Like, where was that little coffee shop?
Or were we on a couch in your house?
Maybe we were on a couch.
Which feels like a coffee shop.
I also picture a coffee shop outdoors on like Ben White. but maybe not.
Maybe.
It's like a little cute place too, and then I was like, "This place is great. I should bring my children to run around like banshees here."
Yeah.
I'm
And we
sure they would
remembered
love
it.
that.
Yeah. We never remembered it again.
But we had that conversation and immediately I was like, "Oh, well, I didn't think about that, but you should be a coach and we should do this together and at some point." And then it was like maybe a year went by and then I think you were like, I think I'm ready."
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was like, I don't know if I'm ready, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's just make it happen. Let's see what happens. Let's see where it goes. And
Yeah.
it's proven to be great.
Absolutely. And I think some of that, like I was having some major personal life shifts
Mhm.
that were like a huge reprioritization.
Yeah.
And so in many ways that also forced my hand with things with my career path.
Right.
And so it is there are those instances where you're, and this is I think part of why it's like you can have a 5-year plan,
Right.
um, and you can go with the flow. And also sometimes there's a hurricane.
Yeah.
Um, and so then it's like, if you're a beached whale, I'm just gonna keep going with this. How do you get back into the ocean?
Yeah. 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 With people, with
Yeah.
community, with
Yeah.
partners, with people who align with you. And there's a lot to be learned from that too. Because I think
Mhm.
sometimes it's really easy to get blinders on when you're heading in one direction, especially when you're stressed. Like I think, internal stress and feeling out of balance and all of those things can cause us to lose a little bit of perspective,
Mhm.
right? Lose a little bit of being purposeful and we're just grinding and being desperate, that, desperate energy. And and that is when I think it's really important to reach out and to pull people in and to get some energy and all of those things.
Yeah.
It's like super critical.
It is. It is. And it's a major um coping mechanism.
Mhm.
That's one of those there are all these different strategies when you're in dark or difficult places. And one of the big ones is lean on your network.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Yeah, I don't it's so funny when you when you were talking about what to say yes or no to. I think that I remember there was a monologue in Follies that really stuck with me. Um do you know which one I'm
Keep
talking
going.
about?
No, I love that we'll always bring up
All
theater.
over. I know. But there's this monologue in Follies that Phyllis says, and she talks about how when you're younger, you have the opportunity to experience and experiment with different personas, different, colors and canvases and sculptures, and you get to do all of those things. And as you start to get older, the choices become narrower. Like um, we have to get narrower in how we choose and what we choose because I think we get clearer around
Mhm.
what is important to us and what moves us and what excites us and what causes us to continue to grow or that feeds us and nurtures us. And it's so interesting because I've had this conversation with my coach in the past where I'm like, I want to say yes to this and I want to say yes to this and I want to be, liked and I want to be blah, blah, blah. But then I also feel like I have to be hard here and blah, blah, blah. And she has said to me, sometimes you have to say no because it's the mature thing to do.
Mm.
and
Yeah.
and it really
Ugh.
stuck with me because I was thinking about, that monologue of like, yeah, when you're young, you can do whatever you want. Like you can be a dancer and you can be a artist and you can be a gardener and you can be a corporate executive and
Yeah.
do all of those things. And then as you start to get older, time is more valuable and like what we're passionate about. So then we pick and choose. We
Mhm.
pick and choose what colors we use on our canvas and we pick and choose like what direction we go in our life. And that is a sign of maturity,
Yes.
which is so interesting, isn't it?
It is. It is. And the two different paths of response that I have is the one, but you're still an artist,
Mm-hmm.
right?
A hundred
You're
percent.
still painting, you're still sculpting, right? Like the things that you are choosing, those choices aren't necessarily gone.
Right.
It's just that the ones that speak more to who you are what you focus on.
Right.
And then for the maturity path, and I've quoted this someone had said this to me when I was in my 20s and they were older. And it was at a job setting, and we talked about coming back to 5-year plan and
Mhm.
like, well, this was my dream over here, but it's gone. And
Mhm.
this person said, well, dreams changing is a sign of maturity. So it's like,
It's
as you
interesting.
continue to live your life, like, again, like, oh my gosh, there are still some dreams I have that are like, oh, those dreams are there.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, like, the biggest one I would give, and this is the, like, being in New York, coming back to Austin because of life circumstances, is that, like, I would have loved to have been on Broadway. You know
Of
what?
course.
I would still love
Of
that.
course. Of course.
But also, is what's ultimately more important to me to be on stage and to be creating? Yes.
Mhm.
So it's like I might not ever get on Broadway, but I can do this other piece of it, and that still fulfills part of that dream.
Right, right. I mean, that takes a lot of ego to like recognize the difference between the two because I think there's this like ultimate trophy, which is like be on Broadway, get your
Yeah.
applause. And then it's like, yeah, but the thing that actually fulfills me
Mhm.
is being on stage, creating, writing, all of those things
Yeah.
that are really important. And I think it's really important to differentiate those two because I think sometimes we get really distracted by the shiny object thing,
Mhm.
and that's not the real fulfillment
Yeah.
because you could be on Broadway standing in the back of in the back of the stage, just, being a tree.
I would still love it, though, I'm not gonna lie.
I
I
mean,
would love to be that tree.
this is actually true. I believe this
Pulling a bagel out of my pocket.
100% about you.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
And might it be more fulfilling for you to have, an original
yeah.
work produced and, and published and, put out there for the world to see and see the amazing like writing that you do,
Yeah. Which, by the way, you can.
I know. Yeah, it's coming up.
Mhm.
It might be out already after this one's
It's true.
published, but we'll
We'll
put a
see.
we'll put a little caveat in there.
No.
Side note,
Coming
Kathleen's
soon.
show.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And that it's like you can hold both truths, that it's like would still love that. Like I don't want to say that it's like I've passed it. I've ascended beyond that. It's like no, I still want that.
Oh yeah.
Um and the like it doesn't mean I want to stop.
Yeah.
Like just because I don't have that, that doesn't dissuade me from pursuing that passion.
Right. Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Let's switch gears.
Please, this is not knowing
Cuz
where it's
well, and
going.
it's not even I don't even think it's switching gears, but we were talking a little bit about leaning into your community and
Mm,
like having partners and all that other stuff. And like I think about this journey, this journey that we've been on. I mean, my entire career, no matter what, if it's like in the theater world, if it's like being a mother, if it's, doing business, being in business and my own business and all of that. And I just think about all of the humans along the way that have kind of been such a strong influence on me and have supported me or guided me or coached me or loved on me when I needed it, that I wouldn't be, I think, where I am as an artist, as a business person, as a mother, as a friend, as whomever, if I didn't have that strong network. And I
mhm,
think it's such an important, we talk about that statement of like no one succeeds alone, and like
mhm.
I'm a firm believer that is real.
Absolutely. Um, yes. I firmly agree. And some of what we were talking about when we were unplugged on our drives, because we drove separately, but it was as if we were together. Um, so and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, I worked at the Tenement Museum in New York, which was such a magical place, still is, which focuses on New York's immigrant and migrant history. And there
Mhm.
were so many conversations that were had in my 8 years there, and all these different myths and tropes that would come up because we are talking about the past for the most part, making
Yeah.
contemporary connections. And so one of the tropes is the like, oh, people back then, they did it on their own. They worked so hard. They pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. When it would
Mhm.
be like, hold on, we're just talking about like a society that was formed in the basement that helped provide financial support for people in need. It's like no one is actually ever doing it on their own.
Yeah.
Pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, I think it's actually part of a longer phrase.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you
I don't
know what
know.
it is? I'm always curious about like these old phrases,
Yeah.
like the other shoe drops, like all of those kind of phrases that I'm always like, where was the origin of that?
Hmm.
Pull them up by their bootstraps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Because the origin is probably like, and don't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Ask a friend to help put on your shoes. It's like probably the original. But like the pieces that we take out to mythologize and like, what are these things that we put on a like a pedestal that's like, this is the way to be independent. Like, what is it about being independent that is so celebrated?
mm-hmm. It's really interesting. I mean, I don't, you know, I think there's something about the American culture that is like that really celebrates independence, and maybe it's just, I mean,
I guess it was like American Independence Day, I guess.
literally,
Wow. Yep.
yeah,
Good call. Good
there
call.
it is.
One-
Self discovery
Yeah.
in these
Jesus.
moments.
Yep.
But also, I think that there are a lot of other cultures outside of America that lean very heavily on collectivism, which is a very different, it's a different mindset around, I mean, I'm trying to remember exactly what cultures, but there are a multitude of different cultures that really lean more heavily on the collective and on community supporting each other as they continue to move through or move forward with whatever like ailments that they have. And then so the question is, there's a value in the independence of America and what this country was founded upon, but how do we get to a nice balance
Yeah.
between those two things where I can be an independent business owner and yet think of the collective society or the collective human or partnerships or community in a way that is in service to people and in service to our clients and in service to the greater good, right?
Totally. Totally. And this is making me think too, right? That it's like, um, coming back to the what and why of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the like, what are you seeking independence from?
Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%. If we have that clarity, then I do think it's a lot easier to say, okay, I can be independent from a belief. I can be independent from a toxic environment. I can be independent from a bad relationship. If I'm purposeful about seeking that information, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to your earlier point, the truth is that we need to have people and partnerships and relationships. Otherwise, we just continue to, I mean, you can only grow so much in your own head.
Totally.
We only have our experiences. And if
Yeah.
we're not, constantly exposing ourselves to what else is out there, we'll get stuck.
We will. And another big thing too, in like forming your network and community or finding the people you can trust.
Yeah.
And it's the like, who do you go to in those dark moments? Who do you go to in those moments when you need an escape? Who do you go to when it's like, yeah, I need that brainstorm and that mind melt? And sometimes it's all the same person or people.
Yeah.
But also because we have various needs, of course, God, sorry, as we're talking about this, I'm like, right. This is where, and I'm in a partnership and I love my partner. I love my husband so much. He cannot be everything I need.
Yeah.
I cannot put that on
absolutely.
one person.
Absolutely.
It is not fair to put it on one person.
Right.
And so it's like we have so many different relationship needs and they can be met from multiple sources.
Yep. Absolutely. A coach is a great one.
But it is. It is.
Yeah.
Like, that's not just us being like, yeah, you're winking, come to a coach.
No, but it's
come
real.
to a coach. Yeah, but it is.
Yeah.
It's the like someone who you can trust, who is there with the intention of supporting you.
100%. 100%. I mean, I can't. And this is not me speaking on behalf of Enzo. This is me speaking on behalf of Leslie, who has a coach who relies on her very heavily when things get very, very hard, and when I'm struggling with stuff, either from a business perspective or from a personal perspective, she's there for everything.
Yeah. And I think in it too is the like, is still that component of challenging with the intention of growth, right? So it's not just a matter of like Like, we are here for you. Being here for you doesn't necessarily mean like, yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes to everything you're saying.
Right,
It is
right.
also coming in and saying like,
Let's
what is
poke
it?
holes in
Let's
that.
poke holes in it.
Yeah,
Exactly. What's another way of seeing this?
yeah, yeah, that's so interesting. When you were talking about relationships and community and this like idea of collectivism versus independence, I was thinking a lot about a narrative that I'm hearing a lot, which is like this new generation doesn't want to work. This new generation is, and I see truth, right? Like I see truth that it's a different generation, that this new generation has stronger boundaries. They have stronger expectations around what the workplace looks like. And this is coming off of historically old school style ways of being in business. And the interesting thing is there's an opportunity in this for business owners, leaders, people who are in relationships with people who they feel don't want to work or whatever that
Mhm,
like
mhm.
narrative is, to like lean into it and get curious about what that is and what that looks like. Now, I'm not saying that we have to sacrifice what we're trying to accomplish from a business perspective because somebody is choosing not to quote unquote work. But what I am saying is there is something that exists in that person that is causing them to feel like they need to pull back or they need to, do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And I think that there's there's something that happens, I mean, I think this goes with so many things with our society right now, which is when we are pushed with something uncomfortable for us,
Mhm.
i.e., I've busted my ass my entire life. I've worked super hard. I have paid my dues. And then 20-year-old Becky comes in and says, I'm taking a day off. And you're like, but Becky, I need you to work. And Becky says, I need a mental health day.
Yeah.
I'm out. That is a uncomfortable thing for me and my beliefs and what I believe. And this is not a real story, by the way. This is an example. I don't know
You
anybody. I
gotta
don't know a
call
20-year-old.
Becky later.
I don't know a
We're gonna
20-year-old
talk
named
about this
Becky.
unplugged.
But like there is something about things that make us feel uncomfortable that, we talk about leadership. And I believe that leadership is not it is not a position. Leadership is how you show up for yourself and for others, leading and choosing. And when we're uncomfortable with something, I believe that we are not choosing. When we're but wait. That feels so aggressive.
I
It
love
feels
it.
so
I love it. No, I
aggressive.
was like,
But
"Oh
when
my
we
god, I love it," is what that face was.
but when we are uncomfortable with something, we're responding to, that part of ourself that's protecting ourselves. It is the natural instinct of fight, flight, freeze, fawn. We naturally go into that state. I'm uncomfortable, so either I'm gonna fight you about it. I'm uncomfortable and I'm gonna be like, F this, I'm out. Like, forget it, I'm out of here. I'm uncomfortable, so
Leslie's frozen, looking around.
or I'm uncomfortable and it's like, are you guys okay? Like, I see everybody's weird right now. And this is what we do when we're uncomfortable. And I think the opportunity, leaders, humans who are just humans who need to be leaders, everybody needs to be a leader, is to be curious. Like, that is the way we fight against our natural instinct of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, to go and be curious about what that is.
Mhm.
And if we could just do that as humans in anything that shows up uncomfortable for us, rather than our natural instinct, which is to go fight it or to freeze or to flight or to fawn, I mean, we could solve a lot of problems, Kathleen, a lot of problems. And, these 20-year-olds, and this is not a like, I don't actually believe that this is a sentiment. I think that there may be a group of individuals that feels this way about an experience that they had, and this has become a huge narrative. I don't know what's true. I don't know what's true, right? I can only speak to my own experience. But I'm curious about how much of this could be avoided if we were just curious
Mhm.
and we were clear about expectations or outcomes rather than doing something the way that it's always been done. That is like that is the thing that we feel good about,
Yeah.
and pushing against what has always been done is the thing that makes us feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the like, if it's the hurricane and you're a whale and you're like, nope, I'm gonna still keep going forward when it's like, no, that's dangerous, whale. No, but it is. It's
And the whale's like, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna fight this
I'm
no
gonna
matter what.
fight this. I will do it. Um, yeah, I mean, it's like the being curious is such a big part of it. And that comes back to even like the community piece where it's like, you can ask questions. It's not in your brain alone to solve the thing.
Right.
Like, be curious in yourself. Ask what is the source of this feeling, but also the like, what is the perspective you're coming from?
100%.
And like I will say, like I'm someone who's like, well, one, there's always the like, kids these days. It's like coming back to like my historical background. Everybody has always been like kids
Always.
these days.
Always.
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 Always. So like let's put that on the table to begin with.
It is so true.
But coming also to
I mean, yeah.
yeah, please. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, like, I think about, when Elvis came out and it was like, who's listening to that rock and roll and his pelvic thrusting? And it's like, girl, have you guys listened to some of the music that's coming out?
I know.
Megan Thee Stallion.
Yeah, just you wait till what's coming next.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's a
Yeah.
huge difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And coming back to like flexibility, balance, equilibrium. We like for people who say this is what's happening, this is the way it's always happened, that's not being in balance.
Right,
Right?
right.
Because it's like, it's also definitely not what it was 50 years ago in the world.
Right.
Like, look at the internet.
Oh my God.
know,
For
like-
sure. The access. Well, and the access to like I think that's another, just another topic that, the access that humans have to that amount of information and opinions and filtered opinions. We don't have these kids don't have tactics to deal with. How do I siphon through all of this information that's coming to me and make a decision for myself? And this is where like grace and space and questions and conversations can lead to a much more balanced, educated future, decision making, etc.
Absolutely. And I would like bring some gray into this and be like, it's not just the kids who don't know how to filter this.
No, I know truth, girl.
It's everybody. And it is the like, read from a different website or news source than you're
so
used
true.
to seeing.
It's so true. It may be even worse. I don't know. Like it may be even worse for people, for adults who have
I mean,
just been exposed to the internet and,
I
are
honestly, yeah.
are like, 70-year-old parents who are on Facebook, like scrolling, and then they're getting
Yeah.
fed all the information and they're like, I told you it's truth.
Yeah. The moon is an alien spaceship. Could be, I don't know. But like, yes, exactly. Like, because I actually have more hope that the rising generations do
Will
know
be
more
more
how to
aware.
filter,
Yeah.
more aware,
Yeah.
because also, and this is the like, there are more conversations happening because there is access to information.
Yeah.
And in returning to the like, this generation doesn't want to work, that's not true. They have boundaries, they have standards and expectations because this is also a changing world.
Right. Right.
It is not, sorry, I'm just going to, like, I know fallacies are not great, but like, it's not great to work 365 days out of the year, your entire
100%.
life.
There's so many studies out there. And this is where I think the flip side of it, where, if you're a leader, a business owner, or somebody who is trying to get a young, Gen Zer to work and you're getting pushback, the question that I would ask myself in that scenario is, what is the outcome that I'm looking for from this person? And can we achieve what they need and what I need at the same time? Because a lot of times this narrative is coming from, well, they don't want to be in the office, or they don't want to work, 60 hours a week, or they don't want to do X, Y, and Z. And, in all honesty, good for them, because it wasn't, I was working 60 hours a week. It wasn't good for me. It was not healthy. I was not healthy,
Yeah.
in a multitude of different ways. It's not sustainable. And it caused me to get out of corporate America
Yeah.
altogether. Like, Sorry, corporate America, you lost a big brain.
You did lose a big brain. Please, a big old
That's such
brain.
bullshit,
No,
but
it's not. No.
but the truth is like you have people that are fleeting to these other gig work and freelance work and all that other stuff because they don't want to be tied down like this. And so the question is do you want to continue to lose talent because you're unwilling to waver around your expectations, your weird expectations, not the like
Yeah.
product expectations, but like I want to see them. I want to see them in the office, you know?
Yeah.
And like how do you build culture? Let's figure that out. I don't have the answer to that, but what I can tell you is if you pour into someone and they see you as a caveat to their growth, I can guarantee you your culture is going to be great.
Yeah.
You don't got to go bowling.
She's talking about literal bowling. I'm guessing like this is team building. Let's bowl. But there's a metaphor, I'm
It's
sure.
so true. Like the jokes about the pizza. Like pizza's
Yeah.
not going to build culture, but I
Oh,
can
for sure.
guarantee you if you help that person get what they want, your culture's going to be fine.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think too, this is the like, um, what is the important thing in here? Is it the how we do it or is it the where we go?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's the like, we have the destination we need to reach, there's so many different ways to get to that destination.
So like there's so many like the internet's given us so many different things now that we can
Of course, Google, baby.
Google AI. Like there's
Oh
just
my
so much
God.
stuff right now.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff and there's so many ways to do it. So
Yeah.
be open to what that looks like.
Yeah. And there's
it could
also
be so different.
there's gonna be new ways too.
There's going to be new ways. And yeah, I mean I think it's important again, when we are uncomfortable to just lean into the curiosity. And if we can lean into the curiosity, perhaps and question what is it that I'm holding on to so that on both sides too, on both sides, perhaps this is also a good question for a Gen Zer who's saying, I need all these boundaries. What are you holding on to? And what is fair and what is realistic? Those are good questions to ask. So that way, when we are confronted with this uncomfort, we can address that uncomfort in a really healthy way rather than just fighting and bumping heads. Like what an amazing world we would live in if that was
Just gonna reach for your hand.
boop.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, right, like love the point that it's on all of us to be curious and on all of us to have that open headspace and oh my gosh, always that question of like, what am I holding on to?
And is that still serving me?
Exactly.
Is it serving me? Is it serving this team? Is it serving humanity?
Yeah. The answer may be yes.
It may be yes.
And that
but
case, hold on to it, but ask the question. And if the answer is no, like this is that maturity thing.
Yeah.
The like, you can let that thing go.
Oh my gosh. I got a little heated.
Did it?
Conversation. I did. I got a little
Oh,
like,
got it. I thought you meant between us and I
oh
was
no,
like, really?
no, not us. This was great. I mean, I could
for
feel my like
the passion
coming out. Well,
Absolutely.
and to your point of, there is also a check in even if I believe these things, like I will find myself judging or like having a strong opinion about something that somebody else says that's in opposition to what I believe, and that's a constant check on my end. How am I leaving space for that belief that is in opposition to mine too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely in opposition. And I think too, how you can celebrate that.
Yeah. Yeah. 100. I mean, that's what this is.
She's pointing to her tattoo and also
The little Enso logo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that is. That's what that means. That was the foundation of all of this, right?
Yeah.
Was that we would help to create a better world by empowering and enabling leaders to think differently,
Absolutely.
So that's why we're here.
Yeah. And that's a big thing. It is. It is. And it's like celebrating the growth in you for being able to do it and celebrating the other perspective that it's like, wow, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
How cool that you did.
Yeah. Well, Kathleen, unplugged, man. We did go.
We did get unplugged. It's a good
So
thing I'm a
amazing.
robot who operates on batteries.
Beep boop.
Boop.
Well, thank you guys for joining us, on another Unplugged episode. It was fun.
That was really fun. It was. Let's get
So
unplugged all the
good.
time.
If only we could always be unplugged, right?
Yes.
That'd be the best. Well, thank you again for joining us. And please, as always, subscribe to the As You Are podcast on all channels and tell your friends. We would love for more people to be able to experience some of the things that we talk about here.
Absolutely. And like y'all, we're curious about you. Like not just saying it. Like
It's
I'm
so true.
super curious about your perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would love to talk.
Yeah. So thank you guys. We'll see you soon.